In 1532, when Spanish conquistadors arrived in Peru, they found something that shouldn't be possible: an empire of 10 million people, stretching 2,500 miles along the Andes Mountains, the largest empire in the Americas, one of the most sophisticated civilizations on Earth, roads that rivaled Rome, architecture that defied gravity, agricultural systems that fed millions, a government that controlled every aspect of society, and not a single coin. No money, no markets, no prices, no merchants, no buying, no selling, no trade as Europeans understood it. The Spanish were baffled. How do you run an empire without money? How do people get what they need? How does the economy function? Francisco Pizarro wrote back to Spain, "These people have no commerce of any kind. They do not buy or sell, yet they want for nothing." The Inca had built a massive, complex, prosperous civilization on principles completely alien to European economics, or Asian economics, or African economics. They'd solved the problem of scarcity without using the one tool every other civilization thought was essential: currency. Instead, they used something else, a system so strange, so counterintuitive, that even today economists struggle to classify it. It wasn't capitalism. It wasn't communism. It wasn't socialism. It wasn't barter. It was something entirely unique. An economic system that existed nowhere else in human history. And for over 100 years it worked. It created prosperity, stability, and prevented famine across a massive, geographically impossible empire. This is the story of how the Inca Empire functioned without money, why it worked, and why the Spanish conquest destroyed not just a government, but an entire economic reality. Because the Inca proved something profound: money isn't inevitable. It's just one solution to the problem of organizing human cooperation, and it might not even be the best one. Let's start with what the Inca economy actually was. At its core, it was based on a concept called mita, which roughly translates to turn, or obligation. Every citizen in the Inca Empire owed labor to the state. Not money, not goods, labor itself. If you were a healthy adult male, you owed the empire a certain number of days of work per year. Maybe 60 days, maybe 90. It varied by region and need. During your mita service, you might build roads, or bridges, or terraces for agriculture, or temples, or serve in the army. So work in state mines. The state would tell you, this month, you're building a bridge, and you'd go build a bridge. In exchange, the state fed you, clothed you, housed you, gave you tools, and when you finished your mita, you returned to your community, where you farmed land that was allocated to you by the state. Because here's the crucial part: you didn't own your land. The state owned all land. The Inca Emperor, the Sapa Inca, theoretically owned everything in the empire. But the state allocated land to communities, called ailis, and the ailu allocated specific fields to families based on their needs. You have 5 children, you get more land than someone with 2 children, because you need to feed more mouths. Your children grow up and move out, your land allocation decreases. It was a system of usufruct. You had the right to use land and keep what you produced, but you didn't own it. You couldn't sell it. You couldn't accumulate it. Now here's where it gets interesting. The land you farmed was divided into thirds. 1/3 belonged to your family. You kept everything that third produced. 1/3 belonged to the state. That production went to feed the army, the priests, the administrators, and people doing mita labor. 1/3 belonged to the state religion, the sun cult. That went to support the temples and religious institutions. So you'd plant your field, but you'd plant it in 3 sections. Your section, the state's section, the gods' section. Everyone knew which was which. And the state's sections were always planted and harvested first. This meant the Inca state didn't collect taxes in money or goods after harvest. They took their share directly from the field. No tax collectors, no assessments, no evasion possible. You couldn't hide your production, because the state's share was planted right next to yours. But wait, what if you needed something you didn't produce? Like metal tools, or pottery or cloth? That's where the redistribution system came in. The state maintained massive warehouses called kulka in every major administrative center. These warehouses stored everything: food, cloth, tools, weapons, raw materials. When you finished your mita labor, you could request items from the warehouse based on your needs. Need a new plow? Requested. Need cloth? Requested. Need extra food because of a bad harvest? Requested. The local administrator, the Kurika, decided whether your request was legitimate. If so, you got it. For free, no payment, no exchange. It was a command economy with redistribution. The state collected everything, stored everything, then gave it back based on need. And it worked because of something else, the quipu. The quipu was the Inca accounting system, a series of knotted strings. Different colors meant different things. Different knot positions represented numbers. Every warehouse had a quipu, keeper, called a kipukamayok, who recorded exactly what came in and what went out, how much maize, how much cloth, how many sandals. These records were sent to regional centers, then to Cusco, the capital. The Inca government knew at any time exactly how much of everything existed in the empire. They could track production, monitor consumption, plan for famines, redirect resources to where they were needed. It was central planning on a massive scale, without writing, using only knotted strings. And it allowed the Inca to do something remarkable: eliminate famine. Now here's the question. Why did this system work when so many command economies throughout history have failed? The answer is geography and culture and necessity. First, geography. The Inca Empire stretched along the Andes Mountains, one of the most difficult environments on Earth. Extreme altitude, radical climate changes over short distances, terrain that made transportation nearly impossible. In the Andes, you can walk for one day and cross from tropical forest to frozen tundra to desert. Different altitudes have completely different growing conditions. Potatoes grow at 14,000 feet. Maize grows at 8,000 feet. Coca grows in the valleys. Quinoa grows in the highlands. No single community could be self-sufficient. You couldn't survive by only growing what your altitude allowed. Market economies solve this through trade, but trade requires infrastructure: roads, security, stable currencies. The Inca solved it through state coordination. The government built roads across impossible terrain, 25,000 miles of paved roads, bridges suspended over canyons, tunnels through mountains, and they controlled the movement of goods. Potatoes from the highlands, maize from the mid-valleys, fish from the coast, coca from the lower slopes, all moving through the state redistribution system. You in a high-altitude village would do your mita labor, and in the state warehouse, you'd find fish that came from the coast, 200 miles away and 12,000 feet below you. You never interacted with the fisherman. You didn't pay him. You didn't trade with him. The state took his fish as tribute, stored it, moved it, and redistributed it to you. This system did something markets couldn't do in that geography. It guaranteed access to diverse resources regardless of where you lived. Second, cultural factors. Inca society was built on reciprocity, the concept of Aini. If I help you build your house, you help me plant my field. If the state demands your labor, the state feeds you. This wasn't individualistic economics. It was communal obligation. The idea of one person accumulating wealth while another starved was culturally abhorrent. The Elu, your community, took care of its members, but it was enforced by the state. You couldn't opt out. You couldn't refuse your mita. You couldn't hoard land or resources. The system worked because it was total. You lived your entire life inside it. There was no alternative economy. Third, it prevented inequality from compounding. In market economies, wealth accumulates. Rich people get richer. Poor people stay poor. Over generations, inequality grows. But in the Inca system, you couldn't accumulate wealth because there was no wealth to accumulate. You couldn't buy land, there was no land market. You couldn't hire labor, there was no labor market. You couldn't save money, there was no money. Your land allocation reset every generation based on need. You couldn't pass wealth to your children because there was no wealth to pass. The closest thing to inherited privilege was being born into the noble class. But even nobles had obligations. They had to manage Alice, administer mitia, serve the state. Fourth, the system was designed for resilience. Those state warehouses, they weren't just for redistribution. They were insurance against disaster. Bad harvest in your region? The state opens the warehouses. Earthquake destroys your village? The state sends resources. Drought in the highlands? Food moves from the coast. During the entire Inca imperial period, roughly 1438 to 1532. There are no records of famine, in an environment where pre-Inca cultures regularly starved. The Spanish chroniclers noted this, even as they were destroying the empire. They wrote with amazement, "No one goes hungry among these people." The Inca had solved a problem that market economies routinely failed at, ensuring everyone had enough. And this is crucial, they did it by eliminating freedom. Now let's talk about what the Inca system cost. Because it wasn't a utopia. It was a totalitarian command economy that controlled every aspect of life. You didn't choose your profession. The state assigned it, often based on what your father did. Born to a potter? You're a potter. Born to a farmer? You're a farmer. Social mobility was essentially zero. You could distinguish yourself and earn favor, maybe become a local administrator. But you couldn't become a merchant prince, because there were no merchants. You didn't choose where to live. The state could relocate entire communities called mitma. If the empire conquered new territory, they'd move loyal populations there and move the conquered people somewhere else. Prevented rebellion, spread Inca culture. Tens of thousands of people were forcibly relocated. Not as punishment, as policy. You didn't choose what to produce. The state told you what to grow in your field. Plant maize here, potatoes there. The state determined the agricultural plan for the entire empire. You couldn't travel freely. The road system was state property. You needed permission to use it. Checkpoints everywhere. Guards asking, "Where are you going?" "Why? Show your authorization." The Spanish described the Inca roads as the best in the world, and also noted that common people couldn't use them. Without state permission, you couldn't innovate or experiment economically. No entrepreneurship, no starting a business, no creating new products to sell. If you invented a better plow, the state would take the design and replicate it. You wouldn't profit. You'd get recognition, maybe, but not wealth. And here's the darkest part. The system required constant surveillance. Every Ailu had an administrator reporting to a regional karata. Every 10 families had an overseer. Every 100 families had a higher overseer. On up the chain to Cusco. These administrators tracked everything. How many people in each household? How much each household produced? Who fulfilled their mita? Who didn't? The Quipu system wasn't just accounting. It was surveillance. The state knew exactly what you produced, what you consumed, where you were, what you were doing. Privacy didn't exist. Individual autonomy didn't exist. The collective was everything, and dissent was crushed. The Inca military was formidable. Rebellions were put down brutally. Entire populations could be moved as punishment. The system worked, but only because it was enforced at every level by an authoritarian state. So when we talk about the Inca economy working, we need to be clear. It worked at eliminating hunger and ensuring basic material security, but it also eliminated freedom in ways that would horrify us today. The trade-off was explicit: security in exchange for autonomy, guaranteed survival in exchange for choice. Every person had food, clothing, shelter. No one starved, but no one was free. In 1532-168, Spanish soldiers led by Francisco Pizarro arrived in Peru. Within a year, they'd captured the Sapa Inca, Atahualpa. Within 2 years, they'd toppled the empire. How did 168 men conquer 10 million? The usual answer: guns, germs, and steel. Spanish weapons, European diseases, strategic manipulation of internal conflicts. All true. But there's another factor. The Spanish introduced money, and money destroyed the Inca economic system more thoroughly than any weapon. Here's what happened. The Spanish wanted gold and silver. The Inca had both, but as decorative metals, not currency. Gold was the sweat of the sun. Silver was the tears of the moon, sacred, not economic. The Spanish started paying people in silver coins to mine silver. Real coins. That could be saved, accumulated, passed on. Suddenly, Inca subjects had something they'd never had before. A store of value that existed outside the state system. You could do your mitia labor, then do extra work for Spanish silver, and save it. And that silver was yours. The state couldn't redistribute it. The mita system started breaking down immediately. Why work 60 days for the state? For food and clothing when you could work for the Spanish for silver that you could keep? The Spanish also introduced markets, places where you could exchange goods for silver. Or exchange silver for goods. The Inca redistributive. System depended on people requesting items from state warehouses. But if you could buy what you needed in a market with silver, you earned. Why depend on state permission? Markets meant choice. Markets meant autonomy. Markets meant you could accumulate wealth. Within a generation, the economic basis of Inca society had dissolved. The Quipu accounting system collapsed because it couldn't track market transactions. It was designed for state redistribution, not private exchange. The warehouse system emptied as people stopped contributing. Why give tribute to the state when the state couldn't provide what markets could? The Mita system, which Spain tried to continue for their own benefit, became forced labor. Without the reciprocal obligations, labor without the guarantee of support. It became slavery, which is what the Spanish wanted, and the cultural basis of the economy, reciprocity. Uni died with the system that enforced it. Once people could accumulate wealth individually, they did. Once some people got rich and others stayed poor, inequality returned. Within 2 generations, Inca society was recognizably Spanish colonial society. Landlords and peasants, rich and poor, masters and servants. Money had done what armies couldn't. It had destroyed an entire economic reality. The Inca Empire fell in 1572, but the Inca economy died in 1533, the moment silver coins started circulating. So what do we learn from the Inca? First, money isn't natural. It's not inevitable. It's a choice. Every economics textbook starts by assuming money is necessary, that markets are the natural state, that humans are naturally trading, bargaining, accumulating. The Inca proved that's not true. 10 million people organized their entire lives without money for over a century. They built one of the great civilizations of human history. They fed everyone, housed everyone, clothed everyone, without a single coin. Money is one solution to the problem of coordinating human economic activity. It's not the only solution. Second, the Incas show us the trade-off. Their system eliminated hunger and homelessness. It prevented extreme inequality. It handled disasters effectively. It coordinated production across impossible geography. But it also eliminated freedom, choice, privacy, innovation, individual accumulation, guaranteed security by eliminating autonomy. Modern market economies do the opposite. They maximize freedom and innovation, but tolerate massive inequality and periodic crises. Neither system is natural. Both are choices about what we value more. Third, the Inca proved that economic systems are fragile. For over 100 years, the Inca economy worked. Millions of people lived their entire lives without seeing a coin. It seemed permanent, inevitable, the only way things could be. Then in one generation, it vanished, completely, replaced by something totally different. Economic systems feel solid while they're functioning. They feel like natural laws, but they're not. They're collective agreements that can collapse overnight. The Inca economy collapsed when people discovered an alternative, when they realized they could accumulate wealth individually, when they chose markets over redistribution. Our market economy feels permanent too, but it depends on collective agreement, on trust in currency, on belief in property rights, on enforcement by the state. If those collapse, our economy collapses, just like the Inca. Fourth, the Inca show us that efficiency and justice aren't the same thing. The Inca system was incredibly efficient at ensuring material security. No one starved. Resources moved to where they were needed. Disasters were managed, but it was built on coercion, on forced labor, on total state control, on elimination of choice. Efficiency without freedom is tyranny, even if it's tyranny that feeds everyone. And here's the uncomfortable question. Could we build something that combines the best of both systems? A society that prevents hunger and homelessness like the Inca, but preserves freedom and innovation like markets? It's the question every social democracy struggles with. How much redistribution without killing markets? How much freedom without tolerating poverty? The Inca answered by choosing complete security over all freedom. Modern capitalism answers by choosing complete freedom over guaranteed security. Neither answer is satisfying, but the Inca proved something important. The way we organize economic life now isn't the only way. It's not inevitable. It's not natural. It's just what we've chosen, based on what we value. The Inca valued community over individual, security over freedom, equality over innovation, stability over dynamism. We value the opposite. Neither is objectively correct. They're different answers to the question, how should humans cooperate? The Inca built an empire without money. They proved it could work. They also proved the cost. And when the two systems met, when the Inca encountered markets and money, they chose markets. Given the choice, people prefer freedom over security, opportunity over equality, the chance to succeed even if it means the risk of failure. Or maybe they just preferred the system that came with guns. We'll never know. But the Inca economy remains one of history's greatest experiments. A proof that money isn't inevitable, just one solution among many, and maybe not even the best one.